I call to order the meeting of the Verona Common Council for Monday, March 13th, 2023 at 7 p.m. We'll begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. Next, we'll have the roll.
Alderperson Cronin.
Present.
Alderperson Helmke.
Present.
Alderperson Hoagst.
Present.
Alderperson Kemp.
Here.
Alderperson Kimmett. Alderperson Posey.
Here.
Alderperson Reiki.
Here.
And Alderperson Touche.
I am here.
All right, we got a full council, so that's good. We'll proceed with the agenda. Next, we'll move on to item 4, which is public comment. Before people get started, I just want to say we are, or I guess I should say I am implementing a 4-minute time limit on the public comments. We haven't had any too big of problems, but there have been 1 or 2 people who've gone on for a really long time, so we're putting a 4-minute timeline on. Several alders and other members of the public have brought this up just to kind of keep the meetings moving and you know, so we can get out of here before midnight. But anyways, with that, public comment is open, and if anyone wishes to speak, now would be the time to do so.
Hi, I'm Beth Foss. I'm from Verona. I'm in here in support of the rezoning of 411 Prairie Heights to a public institution instead of the current zoning. I thank Alderpersons Kemp and Hesht for bringing the application for rezoning back to the agenda for reconsideration. From the January meeting, it seemed that the neighbors across the street were already dissatisfied with the parking and the situation for that area, and understandably so. Their outlets back up to this property. But I also hope that you don't penalize a new business for the current issues that have already been there. I think having a school move in might be the best move, as at least the drop-off and pickup times would be a consistent time, which could possibly schedule around. I live right next to Epic, and I must tell you that I arrange my driving routes, and sometimes if I can, my timing to avoid the Epic traffic. And this school would be kind of similar, as the drop-off and peak times would be probably in 15-minute increments, as stated in the amendment. Versus not knowing what could go on. I know some person at that meeting said for events on the weekends and whatever, they have 6 cars for 1 kid. Probably for school drop-off, you're not going to end up with lots of people bringing 1 kid to school. So it's a little more of a set thing. This rezoning would also still allow the current tenants to stay at the building, except maybe the therapy business, which someone mentioned was moving anyway. The current tenants are great assets to the community for fun, health, and recreation, and for people of ages. And if they can stay, that's wonderful. A citizen in January also mentioned the taxpayers' funds would be used for the school, which I was told is untrue. Tuition would be charged for the students, so there would be no implications for taxpayer concern over that. From the notes in the meetings, it seems that the staff recommended the Planning Commission recommend to the Planning Commission their approval. The traffic analysis led to the LOS, the level of service of a C or better during intersection peak hours, drop-off, and pickup times. Per that statement, it was said that a D or better is considered acceptable. So this was a level better than that. And also for that, there seemed that there's a plan in place with a route through the parking lot that seemed acceptable to the applicant and the city traffic engineer. In the notes, it also seemed that City Administrator Adam Sayre also seemed to recommend the rezoning based on the available parking spaces, and commented that the site is currently underutilized during the daytime hours. I just drove over there on my way over, and it was less than half. I've also driven during the day, and I also agree it's not nearly as used. So it seems that both the city traffic engineer and the city administrator recommend this project without major issues. There's a possibility that another suburban commercial business wanting to take over the property could use it, but like office space seems to be in overabundance and not in demand, so I don't see that being likely. Any other place that would come in, like a recreation or a banquet or the like, would just compound the parking issues that the current neighbors are facing, understandably. So I feel like it's best to take the best option that won't exacerbate the current problem. With so many apartment buildings with high density and traffic issues being allowed in the city, to keep it all contained, I feel the applicant has worked to create a good solution, utilizing the space and working to find solutions. I'll also say that this would benefit kids who wouldn't benefit from such a large high school. I know we just built a large, massive high school, and I think it's awesome, but I also know that some kids also function better in a smaller space, and it could be a benefit. I also believe that it would bring in somewhat of an economic boost to the community. I know people drop off their kids, they're going to stay and have coffee. They might go have lunch. They might see some friends, and they're going to go shop. So I see it currently as the best option with controlled traffic and potential economic benefits. Thanks for your time.
Thank you. We're still in public comment.
My name is Brian Paul. I'm the president of the Meridian Condo Association right across the street, and I know some of you are tired of seeing my emails. I've been asking for some information, getting some information. Across the street, we have a lot of over 55 people. I think our oldest one is 87. These people still drive. They move in and out of that parking lot. This project, we found out about it when we got a notice for a plan commission meeting. And the plan commission the first time tabled it, if I'm correct. The second time they looked at it, they voted against, they voted for recommending denial. The city council denied it, and we're back again. The way I understand it, the school has come in with proposals that are supposedly going to change the way we all think about this project that they want to do. I don't see anything any different at all. I see that they cut 40 kids from 300 down to 260. 260 kids in and out every day. If they have to get there somewhere. This is not a neighborhood school where half the kids are going to walk. It's a school where they have to get rides somehow. They're not being bused. That means 260 times a day, somebody either has to drive through, and I saw the little arrows on their parking lot. I don't see how that's changed anything. There's still 2 ingress and egress points, and they're going to be used 260 times. If you do the math, that's if they all come in their own vehicle, another vehicle coming in and out about every 8 seconds. Traffic is one of the biggest issues. I see that they're also setting their time limits as to when the school is going to go, and it says, I believe, 8 to 3, unless they decide a different time. I think we're leaving that up to them to make their decisions on when it's going to be, as long as it's within a half hour. Again, the capacity didn't change. The other thing that I see in the new proposal is that it's going to be limited to high school kids. I don't see how that changes anything that this body has already voted on. We knew it was going to be high school kids all along. And high school kids are high school kids, you know. I'm not saying they're all bad, but I am saying that they are high school kids. They tell us right now they're going to have a closed campus. What's going to change in the future? We don't know what's going to change in the future. When the lunch bell rings next year and they're tired of having them all inside and they change to an open campus, that means 260 kids are going to spread through the neighborhood. And that neighborhood is primarily older people across the street. And I guess the bottom line here is we've been through this before. I don't think anything has changed. If you look right into the things that were put in on the new proposal, it's still a 260 student high school across from elderly, over 55 housing. It's the wrong use for that. I mean, God bless the place. They have their tournaments. They have a lot of different things. But this is a for-profit business that's asking for this. This isn't because we outgrew our schools and we need more school space. This is a for-profit business going into this place. It's just the wrong place to put a high school. And very honestly, I just can't see why any of this should change our minds as to what you folks have already voted on. So I would ask you to look that over and do the right thing, as you did last time, and turn down the proposal to have a high school in a spot where it really shouldn't be. Thank you.
Thank you. We're still in public comment.
Hi. Hi. Some of us are back again, and thank you for listening to us. It's hard to say exactly what we want to do because I don't know what's changed, and I'm hoping that as you talk about it, we'll hear what the new changes are so that we can see if we support it. You've heard all the comments about our concerns. We're concerned about the traffic, we're concerned about the possible accidents and the way people come in. So I'm assuming that I liked the previous speaker because he really said, what's different? We still are seeing the same thing. And so I hope that you'll be able to answer our questions about what's different and how is this going to be better for our community. We have a lot of seniors across the street, and we worry about them. I mean, right now, we can almost only use one exit because the people come flying in, and that first driveway, you don't have time to react. And so in the past meetings, I've been to 2 of the meetings, and in the past meetings, you voted no, and so did the Planning Commission. And so I'm anxious to hear what's changed and what's improved, and so that we can support it if there's something really good. But right now, I haven't heard anything that's different, and it's difficult to support it because those who live in the Meridian and out throughout this area, we're seniors. We don't have as quick a response, and we're not going to have a light at the end. And I don't know, do we have to wait until there's an accident or a crisis or somebody gets killed there? So I'm hoping that you'll do the right thing also and not support this. Thank you for listening.
We're still in public comment.
Hello. Good evening, Mayor Diaz and council members and our 2 alderpersons. I'm talking about the VAC rezoning. COVID changed every business forever, and every business has to retool. And there's lots of office spaces open now, and there's some businesses open at the VAC as well. It's when the initial investors invested and decided to take a risk and build what is a great building for many people, they took that risk. It's not the city council's responsibility to help businesses in that way. We live in America. It's a free enterprise. It's not a different form of government. Right now, the VAC helps thousands of kids, students, adults, in a broad spectrum of our community. This zoning change will impact that. I know they say it won't, but it will impact that. And it takes more than a school to raise a kid. It takes a village, and part of the VAC fulfills part of that village responsibility. Another point I have is, I've been to all the hearings. I've been to the 2 planning commission hearings and the 2 city council hearings. And the investors have changed their story, has changed their business plan significantly in order to appease the city. But there's, once that zoning changes, you know, I remember when, you know, one of the bars was getting a re-license, and they said, oh, it's going to be a sports bar. Well, I don't know about that. And and part of that retooling of businesses, there's lots of building space in Verona and in Madison. It doesn't have to be there. It can, you know, you can set up a school in any number of office spaces, which would be, you know, there's office spaces right across from the new high school. So, thank you for your time.
My name is Dwayne Yan. I'm a resident, probably the closest resident to the Verona Athletic Center. I am directly across the street on the south end of the building. I would like to know, is it precedent for the board, the planning commission, and the city council to do a vote and then keep retaking votes until... Do you have any answers for us? How often is this done? Is this a precedent, or has this been done before, where you take a vote and then all of a sudden somebody changes their mind? Our condo association is probably the most impacted by what's going to happen across the street. Are you willing to put up school signs so that we go down to a 20-mile-an-hour speed limit? Are you ready to, seeing it's actually pretty narrow with parking on both sides of the street, are you willing to take parking off one side of the street so it's safer for us driving out and for the people driving up and down that street? I know last time several of the council people say, well, I've driven through there and it doesn't seem so bad. You don't live there. Instead of having traffic parked all over for the weekend like we always have now, we'll have it 7 days a week. Does anybody need a reminder that a woman was just killed on the bridge, probably a fourth of the mile from us this last winter? I don't hear any answers coming.
Thank you. We're still in public comment.
Good evening, everyone. My comments are going to be a bit repetitive.
Oh, I'm sorry, could we get your name?
My name is Jim Weiner, and I live at 405 New Age Way. Our home is situated in such that we're sort of in competition with Mr. Yan for who has the best view of the Verona Athletic Center parking lot. We step into our living room and look out the window, and there it all is. So we see a lot of it every day. I'm here representing my wife, who has already spoken, and myself, and the concerns of many neighbors who I've talked with and discussed this issue with. And of course, they all thought that this had been put to bed back in January. But now the word on the street is that there has been a change of heart in the ranks, and the votes may now be present for approval. So maybe the hay has already been harvested, but we sincerely hope not. We oppose this zoning change and the plan to house a school on the premises of the Verona Athletic Center. We understand that it might be a great idea for the investors and the advocates for the school, but we feel it is not a good idea for the elderly community living right across the street from it. And our concerns are mainly in the area of congestion and safety. The congestion in that parking lot on weekends, tournament days, and many weekdays is absolutely madcap. It's crazy. And don't let anyone tell you it is just on weekdays, just on weekends. That just is not true. Parking on the street for locals is all but impossible on many days. The athletic center is flourishing and is a flourishing and growing business. And on many days when the cars are lined up on each side of the street, it makes it dangerous to pull out onto Prairie Heights, and parking on the street is all but impossible. That is the situation now. What is it going to be like when another 200 drivers, many of them teenage drivers, are piling in there every day? It's going to be headache city for those who live and drive there. People drive fast on Prairie Heights. Yes, there's a speed limit, but they drive very hard, coming off from M onto Prairie Heights or turning off Locust onto Prairie Heights and coming down the hill. They fly going through there. And it is a highly populated area with many slow-moving walkers and slow reflex drivers. And it's not a sleepy area right now. Just 1 block away, Long Block, up the street, 12 duplexes are going up at the corner of Locust and Prairie Heights, and that will bring even more traffic. And there has really been no credible traffic study on this proposal that I have heard of. It is our belief that a vote for this plan will make the surrounding area much less desirable, much less safe, and much more congested than it is presently. From the standpoint of most people in our community, this is a really bad idea. I would hope that before you vote on this zoning change and the plan for a school, you will ask yourself the following questions. Will this school plan and rezoning make the surrounding community less traffic congested or more? Will it make the surrounding community safer or less safe? Will the overall quality of life of the surrounding community be improved or downgraded? We believe the Planning Commission was right, and the council's judgment last January was the safe and the wise vote. We hope you vote against this zoning change and school proposal. Thank you. Thank you for listening.
Thank you. We are still in public comment.
Good evening. My name is Dennis Pensorn, and I live at Meridian across the street from the athletic center. You've heard a lot of comments from people with the concerns with the safety as far as the traffic and the foot traffic and all the other things along with that. I would just reiterate that we feel the same way. Just for the heck of it, yesterday I drove over there into the parking lot at the athletic center, and according to my count, there are about 30 to 35 parking spots over there in that parking lot that are already dedicated to either a handicap parking spot or to the Anytime Fitness Center over there. You also have the boot camp over there that has some of the spots that are reserved for that business. So you've got about 35 spots out of the I don't remember what the number was, that they started with like 180 spots, they said was in that parking lot, that are already dedicated to businesses that already occupy that building. Now, I know there's a couple other businesses over there, in addition to the Anytime Fitness and the boot camp and all the others. They have ballet over there several days a week. They have a therapy group over there. So there's a lot of traffic. Just for example, this morning when I left at 8:45, that parking lot was probably better than half full of either employees that work over there now or people that were frequenting the businesses that are over there. So I'm trying to understand in my mind when we're going to have 260, potential 260 kids coming in that school. I know they're not all going to drive a car to that school, but even if half of them do, how are they going to get all those kids in that school? Is that going to mean a big overflow on the street? Even now in the wintertime, we've been fortunate, we haven't had a lot of snow this winter, but there are areas of that parking lot over there right now that are blocked off because the snow has not been plowed out of there. So is that going to be something that somebody's going to be in charge of keeping that parking lot completely clean so that every parking spot is accessible? I think these are all things that need to be addressed and understood, that it's not just a matter of 260 kids fitting in the building. Are they going to be able to fit into the outside of the building? And I think in the initial proposal back in January, the talk was that this high school was going to be only a temporary situation, that after they got another high school built somewhere in the city of Verona, that they were then going to transfer this over to a grade school where they would have younger kids over there. I think this is even going to compound the problem even more, because you're going to have all these little kids that there's really no place for them to go outside and have a recess or, so is that going to be addressed? That they're going to have to enclose an area where they can have these kids be able to have an area like that? I think these are all things that have to be questioned and answered before you change your mind from what you originally had decided in the first go-around. So I would ask that this council please stand by your initial vote to begin with and turn this down. Thank you for listening.
Thank you. We're still in public comment, so if anyone else wishes to speak, now would be the time to do so.
Hi, my name is Diane Mauer. I live in the Glen, which is on New Age Circle, and you've heard it all before. I don't have a lot new to add. My concerns, the biggest concern I have is how it's possible that you're reconsidering this vote, especially when it was brought as a change by the alderman who has this as his area. So that's a concern, that not being aware of the people in that area is a concern. Number two, the traffic issue to me, and I live in the community too, and I like to think of myself as a alert driver and a good driver, and I don't think the fact that the age of the people, and yes, there's reflex issues and everything, but I'm a good driver, and there have been times that people have pulled out of the VAC center and aren't paying attention, stepping on the gas and not looking at what's going on, that it's very, very difficult for anybody of any age with any reflexes to pull out on Prairie Heights. And by the time we add in the new building on top of the hill, the rumor is there's going to be a daycare center going into the empty space on Prairie Heights. So that's going to increase traffic. We're doing nothing but increasing traffic without any really good solution of how we're going to be able to protect the drivers, protect the pedestrians. I was a former high school teacher, and yes, it's a wonderful idea that it's a closed campus, but in the real world, it's the same thing. How long will it stay closed? And even if it is a closed campus, that doesn't always mean that that's what happens. So I'm very concerned that this came up for a vote again. The decision was made, and why it's being readdressed again, I don't understand. That everybody talked about this is the way it's going to be, and now all of a sudden it's like you're beating the horse. You just keep going over it and over it until you win, and I don't think that's right. I think I'm asking beseeching that you consider the fact that you already turned it down and it should be turned down again. Thank you.
Thank you. We are still in public comment, so if anyone else wishes to speak, now would be the time to do so. Going once, going twice. All right. I don't see anyone else approaching the microphone, so we'll move on to item 5, which is approve the minutes from the February 13th, 2023 Common Council meeting. Corrections or motions to approve?
Move approval?
Second.
Motion by Alder Ricky, seconded by Alder Touche. Last chance for corrections. Seeing none. All those in favor of approving the minutes from the February 13th, 2023 Common Council meeting, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. And that motion passes. Next, we'll move on to item 6, which is mayor's business. Don't have anything for you tonight. We'll move on to item 7, which is announcements. Any announcements from the council? Seeing no hands, we'll move on to item 8, the administrator's report. Mr. Sayer.
Thank you. Just a couple updates tonight. We will have a council organizational meeting on April 18th at 6 p.m., so please mark your calendars for that meeting. That'll be held here in the council chambers. We did have a primary election that was held on February 21st. A total of 3,496 people voted in the city, of which 905 people voted absentee and 2,591 voted in person at the polls. Turnouts for that election was at approximately 36.5%, so pretty good turnout. Also in my report in the packet, we have the early voting dates and hours in there, so I would encourage you to look at those. There's a whole bunch of them in there. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for Mr. Sayer? Seeing no hands, we'll move on to item 9, engineer's report. Ms. Fisher.
Thank you. For the County Highway PD Turn Lane Extension Project, beginning in early April, work is planned to begin on westbound County Highway PD to extend the westbound left turn lanes just west of Woods Road. Later in the spring and early summer, work will begin to install signals at the intersection of PD and Woods Road. This also includes widening Woods Road and adding a westbound PD right turn lane to Woods Road. For the 2023 Asphalt Street Rehab Project, the bid opening occurred on March 1st. There were 3 bids submitted, and Payne and Dolan was the low bidder. The project involves pavement restoration on Enterprise Drive from East Verona Ave to about 400 feet north of Silent Street. The work is intended to be completed summer 2023. And finally, I just wanted to note that we have a public stormwater outreach event planned. It's actually an Earth Day event on Saturday, April 22nd at the library, and it is targeted to elementary school students, and it's a raindrop tour, so just tracking where a raindrop goes. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions for Ms. Fisher? Seeing none, we'll move on to item 10, which is committee reports. First up, we have 10A Finance. Alder Kemp.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to make a motion for the payment of the bills in the amount of $17,248,912.03.
Motion by Alder Kemp. Is there a second?
Second.
I think that was Alder Helmke seconded. Alder Kemp.
Yes, first, just for the sake of discussion, we had a payment of $16,204,131 for our tax settlement for this public school system, the county, and technical college. We had a payment of $45,868 to Kaiser Chrysler for a public works pickup truck that was in the budget. A payment of $59,709 to Municipal Property Insurance Company for our 2023 property insurance. A payment of $57,266 to North Shore Bank for payouts of benefits for an employee that retired, and a payment of $289,712 for a new sweeper for Public Works to R&L Incorporated.
Thank you for that explanation. Questions or comments on the motion to pay the bills? Seeing no further discussion, all those in favor of paying the bills in the amount specified, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. And that motion passes. Anything further from Finance?
Nothing further, sir.
Excellent. We will move on to 10B Plan Commission. Alder Posey.
Thank you. I'd like to make a motion to approve ordinance number 23-1021, annexing 5.54 acres of land located at 6878 and 6880 County Highway M, with the following condition: the annexation shall become effective upon execution of an annexation agreement.
Motion by Alder Posey. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Alder Kemp. Alder Posey.
The Plan Commission voted 6-0 on March 6, 2023, to recommend the Common Council approve the request to annex approximately 5.5 acres of land to the City of Verona with the conditions specified.
Thank you. Motion before the body. Questions or comments on this motion? Seeing no further discussion, all those in favor of ordinance number 23-1021, annexing 5.54 acres of land located at 6878 and 6880 County Highway M with the conditions specified, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. The motion passes. Alder Posey.
I'd like to make a motion to approve resolution number 23-010, approving a certified survey map to create one lot out of two lots located at 6878 and 6880 County Highway M with the following condition: the annexation shall become effective upon execution of an annexation agreement.
Motion by Alder Posey. Is there a second? Seconded by Alder Kimmett. Alder Posey.
The Plan Commission voted 6-0 on March 6, 2023, to recommend the Common Council approve a certified survey map to create one lot out of two lots located at 6878 and 6880 County Highway M with the conditions specified.
Thank you for that explanation. Questions or comments on this motion? Alder Posey.
Since this is, I think, the last time we'll be dealing with this, I wanted to commend the guys from Western Landscape and how they've worked through this process. I think you're a great business to have established in Verona, and welcome. I'm excited to see you grow.
Well said. Any other questions or comments? Seeing no further discussion, all those in favor of resolution number R-23-101, approving a certified survey map to create one lot out of two lots located at 6878 and 6880 County Highway M with the conditions specified, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. The motion passes. Anything further from Plan Commission?
Nothing further.
I will move on to 10C, which is Public Works, Sewer and Water Committee. Alder Touche.
Thank you. Item 10C1, I'm making a motion to approve awarding project 2023-101 Verona Asphaltic Street Rehabilitation Project not to exceed $319,331.93.
Motion by Alder Touche. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Alder Humke. Alder Touche.
The city received 3 bids for the above project. Payne & Dolan came in as the lowest bidder of the amount not to exceed. Was estimated based on asphaltic costs, it would be closer to $373,000. Fortunately, prices have come down. Payne & Dolan has previously worked throughout the city of Verona based on past work performance in the city, reference checks, and knowledge of submitted subcontractors. Public Works staff is of the opinion Payne & Dolan has the personnel, equipment, and financial assets necessary to complete this project in 2023. Thank you.
Thank you for that explanation. Questions or comments on the motion? Seeing no further discussion, all those in favor of awarding project 2023-101 Verona Asphaltic Street Rehabilitation, as described by Alder Touche, in the not to exceed amount, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. And that motion passes. Alder Touche.
Thank you. Next up, 10C2. I'm making a motion to approve an offer to purchase for land necessary for on parcel 1 for transportation project plat 286-2022-113 under project ID 2022-113 County Highway PD.
Motion by Alder Touche. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Alder Humke. Alder Touche.
City staff and our professional negotiator have worked with the representatives of the landowner on this acquisition. The agreement allows the cities to acquire land and other property interests for County Highway PD/Woods Road Transportation Improvement Project. The property is located on the northwest quadrant of the intersection of County Highway PD and Woods intersection. This is a land sale only. The project requires the following: 0.009 acres of right-of-way and 0.104 acres of temporary limited easement. The offer presented to the owner is for $1,600.
Thank you for that explanation. Questions or comments on this motion?
And if you're curious, 0.009 acres is about 390 square feet.
Huh, I was curious. Any other comments? Seeing no further discussion, all those in favor of approving the offer to purchase lands necessary on parcel 1 for transportation project plat 286-2022-113 under project ID 2022-113 County Highway PD in the amount specified signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. That motion passes. Alder Touche.
Thank you. Item 10C3, I'm making a motion to approve an offer to purchase for lands necessary for parcel 3 for transportation project plat 286-2022-119 under project ID 2022-119 County Highway PD.
Motion by Alder Touche. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Alder Humke. Alder Touche.
You're not wrong, it's a different project, but similar area. City staff and professional negotiators, again, have worked with representatives of the landowner on the acquisition. In an attempt to shorten the discussion here, we are acquiring 1.586 acres of new right-of-way, 1.018 acres of existing right-of-way, 0.170 acres of permanent limited easement, and lastly, 0.249 acres of temporary limited easement. This is a zero-cost transfer to the city.
That makes it easier, I guess. Motion before the body. Questions or comments on the motion? Seeing no further discussion, all those in favor of approving the offer to purchase for lands necessary for on parcel 3 for transportation project plat 286-2022-119 under project ID 2022-119 County Highway PD signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. And that motion passes. Anything further from Public Works?
Nothing for tonight.
All right, we'll move on to item 11, new business. First up, we have 11A, which is a discussion and possible action regarding the reconsideration of ordinance number 23-1018, approving a zoning map amendment for 411 Prairie Heights Drive from suburban commercial to public institutional. Mr. Sayer.
Thank you. On January 23rd of 2023, the Common Council and Mayor voted 5-4 to deny the rezoning of 411 Prairie Heights Drive from SC, suburban commercial, to public institutional, PI. The zoning map amendment was requested to accommodate a high school land use within the existing building. Since the vote on January 23rd, Alderpersons Kempt and Hoaxed have requested the application be placed on a Common Council agenda for reconsideration. Reconsideration is a process that's identified in our ordinances, and Mr. Kleinmeyer could speak to that in a few minutes, but city staff has worked with the applicant, Impact Charter School, to include additional conditions of approval that specifically address comments made by the public and alderpersons at the January 23rd meeting and during the public hearing. The proposed conditions address public safety and traffic concerns. The recommended conditions are: A, the zoning map amendment shall become effective upon Impact Charter School, the applicant, acquiring the property. B, the school day shall be from 8 a.m. to 3 p.m. or periods within this time frame, for example, from 8:15 to 2:45. Drop-off of students shall occur between 7:30 a.m. and 8 a.m. or later if the school day starts later than 8 a.m. And pickup of students shall occur between 3 p.m. and 3:30 p.m. or earlier if the school day ends earlier than 3 p.m. Condition number C. The student capacity of the school shall not exceed 260 students. This capacity requirement applies no matter how much of the building on the parcel is utilized by the school. Condition D, the grades taught at the school shall be limited to 9th, 10th, 11th, and 12th grades. And finally, condition E, parking and transition traffic flow on the parcel shall be pursuant to the plan provided by Impact Charter School and attached in the packet. At this time, Impact Charter School has indicated that students will not be dropped off or picked up at the school daily by school buses. If this changes in the future and school buses are dropping off or picking up students, Impact Charter School shall update the parking and transition traffic flow plan, and the updated plan shall be subject to the approval of the City of Verona zoning administrator. So those are 5 conditions that were added to this to address the comments and concerns that have been raised. If the Common Council wants to move forward with the zoning map amendment, the conditions of approval need to be included in the motion. I'm not sure, Mr. Kleinmeyer, you got anything to add to this?
Mr. Kleinmeyer?
Sure. Just on that last topic, when you look at the ordinance, actually in the packet, the conditions are set forth already in the document. So if you do approve the ordinance, those conditions, unless you amend them, would be incorporated into the ordinance. Just to try to address some of the comments made in public comments, there's really two bases to bring this matter back to the Common Council. One is the reconsideration process that Mr. Sayer has mentioned. Most recently, the city utilized that process for the Lincoln Street Apartment project that is, kitty corner essentially from where we're sitting right now. The other is, at a city staff level, we believe that the ordinance as it exists now does have a change in conditions, and under our zoning code, that would allow it to also come back to you. The significant part here is, the best way is to provide an example. Had the Common Council approved the ordinance at its prior meeting, all of the conditions that are now contained in the ordinance would not have applied to the school. And so the property would have been able to utilize as a school without any of these conditions. These conditions that are in here were specifically prepared to try to address traffic issues that have been raised during the public comment process and also by alderpersons. One example is, condition B, where we're limiting the hours of school. Really, the purpose for this is to try to make sure that there's not a lot of people coming to the school in the morning when the traffic report that was done indicated there was a lot of traffic. And then here, everyone has to be out of the school by 3:30. There, what we're thinking about is we want to avoid a conflict between traffic at the school and traffic at for the children's activity at the building, which typically starts at 4 o'clock. So obviously, the other conditions, we can respond to those to the extent that you have any questions, but the conditions are there as part in response to the traffic safety issues that were raised before. The other thing that I would just add, and I think this is true, Adam, but maybe you can correct me. My understanding is at the last meeting, city staff made the point of, parking on the street is a separate issue than this zoning change. And my understanding is at the public safety meeting in February, city staff started talking with the committee about potential changes to the parking on the street from a safety perspective. One of them being potentially putting the yellow paint to avoid parking as closer to the intersection so that to help with the traffic triangles.
Correct. There was a conversation at Public Safety in February to look at kind of where those driveways are on the north side of the road to try to help open up some of those sight lines that kind of handle some of the existing problems that are there. Part of that conversation was obviously that could be step one. If there's additional issues out there, we could look at further parking restrictions, but trying to take an incremental approach to kind of addressing some of those concerns that have been raised. We anticipate that ordinance will come back for potential approval here in the next month or two. City staff is still kind of working to get out there to look at the situation, and this, quite honestly, the snow has impacted us to be able to take a hard look at the curb lines. But we'll be meeting out there hopefully this Friday to kind of get the ball moving and getting something back to public safety and ultimately to the Common Council.
Thank you. I guess I'll just start real quick. In public comment, a gentleman mentioned potentially adding school signs. Mr. Sayer, is that within the purview of the city?
It's probably a question for Jess Billmeyer. I know it's been talked about before. I don't think it's been, I think the thought process was you could add speed limit signs out there. I'm not sure if we currently have those on that street today, but I don't believe school signs are kind of considered for that area.
Okay, but it is something we could revisit in the future.
Yes.
And then I just want to make a comment about precedent. Yeah, as Mr. Kleinmeyer explained, this is a procedure that's allowed under city ordinances. It is rare, I will acknowledge. Like Mr. Kleinmeyer said, the last time it was used, I believe, was in 2018 for the Lincoln Street Apartments, and before that it was 2013. So that's twice in like 10 years. So it is a rare procedure. And I think I just want to make a general comment that I don't know where the daycare is at. I'm not going to necessarily talk about it too much because it's not on the agenda, but I did say, yes, someone has approached the city about putting a daycare out on that street. I don't necessarily know if they like the feedback from the council, so we're basically waiting to see if they'll come back or not, but that has been brought forward. Anyways, though, I would open up to questions, comments, or motions. Alder Touche.
Thank you. So if I remember last time, we were talking about zoning, and we couldn't specifically talk about the tenant. This time it seems different, now that we've fully focused on the tenant or the potential property owner. I'm curious why we can also talk about the property owner versus the zoning.
Well, I think what we cannot get into a discussion of the value or how you feel about, for example, private schools, private versus public schools. That's not within the purview of the zoning decision. What is within the purview of a zoning decision is contemplation of things related to public safety and traffic. And so to the extent that you have concerns related to the operation of a school versus other businesses as it relates to traffic and public safety issues, I think that's valid. But we can't, and I know this was not what the council did the last time, and I know this is not what the council would do now, but we can't, for example, say, well, we don't want to approve this because we don't like private schools. That's the distinction. But to the extent that you want to have a discussion about traffic and public safety issues, and it's the fact that there would be school students in the area as opposed to maybe a business that's permitted there now that would only have adults, I think that you can have that conversation.
Thank you. I have more questions. I notice that in the proposed changes here, it is specific to the applicant acquiring the property, and then the zoning flips. What happens when the applicant no longer has the property? Do these time settings and all of that still take place regardless of that applicant or the property of the owner, or does the zoning flip back after that applicant leaves?
To the extent that a school would be operated on the property, let's say this applicant acquires, I'm not exactly sure what my understanding is that you're going to have essentially a landlord that's going to acquire the land, and then Impact Charter School would lease a portion of the property if this is approved. These are going to be specific to the operation of a school. So as long as a school is operated there, whether it's this school or a different school, if you approve it, these conditions would apply.
How will we be able to enforce this? Because I'm just trying to imagine traffic's a mess, right? You got a whole bunch of basketball courts downstairs. There's a lot of athletic facilities down there. And, how are we going to say, well, this person, it's past 3:30. You're not supposed to be here. Oh, no, I'm here for the gym. I mean, frankly, this feels like a hot mess, unenforceable because of what we're trying to do. I get we're trying to shoehorn in a particular tenant, but zoning is zoning. If we want to have a school there, I think we should treat it like a school and not like, well, we're going to make these special exceptions for this particular tenant. I have no issues with private schools. Frankly, I went to them as an elementary school, and it was a good experience for me, so I have no bias that way. But my point is, if we intend on making this zoned to allow schools, we have to do it intentionally and be willing to accept they're going to operate as a school, and we want, and shoehorning them in between these hours, I don't think it's fair to any school, because regardless of situations, many of you have been with when the school districts come here for all their traffic situations and all the, when kids have to come and go and parents pick up and drop off, it's a hot mess. And unless the roads or traffic situation around it are designed for proper traffic flow and proper parking, it's always going to come back to us. And frankly, I'm not inclined or very interested in creating this kind of potential confusion around, is this car here because it's a student, or they're here because of some basketball tournament? And, lastly, I'm just going to add that I think the use of the current building is appropriate, certainly for the athletics and sports things that happen. Daycare possibly down the road. It's a building. We don't have many spaces in Verona. In fact, I think this is the only one that has a big enough room to have events. The only one that comes to mind when I'm thinking out loud is Wildcat Lanes used to have it. Well, now it's a church. We don't have anything else like it. So, we have to decide if this is if we're willing to give up that facility, it may not be a successful business right now. Could be in a few years. Maybe it's not an appealing place to have a venue. You know, it doesn't come to my mind personally, but there are a lot of people that it does come to their mind. So I'm not a fan of this, mostly because of these set hours that we're trying to establish. I think we're complicating things and going to make it even more difficult there if we do this. Thank you.
Other questions or comments? Alder Kimmett.
Just to put this in greater context, is the next agenda item about the tenant that will be like across the street from this?
Mr. Sarah.
Correct. The next agenda items for the Western Investment Properties, it's an annexation agreement.
Which my understanding of that, it would be like landscaping,
It's a landscape company, yes.
so large trucks.
They would have vehicles.
So I think just to put this in the broader context, if we're already concerned about the traffic and it's already a problem, I just don't know why we're revisiting this. It hasn't gotten any safer and we're only adding more traffic. And now hearing that there might be a daycare as well, I just don't see how that gets remedied, even with the changes that have been made to the application. So I am not in favor.
Other questions, comments, or motions? Alder Kemp.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll make a couple comments. I appreciate Alder Kimmett and Alder Touche's comments. First, to Alder Touche, who I believe is probably the longest tenured member, except for maybe Heather, here. If we were to do exactly what he said and treated it just like a normal school, we would be opening the door to the problems that most people here are concerned about. The reason why that's why we have the exemption, or excuse me, the exceptions and the standards put in place to try and limit that. Secondly, my other concern was if we left it open and did not get a tenant like a school in there right now, if, say, for example, someone wanted to come in and put a venue for weddings and things of that nature on the weekends. Now, not only do you have tournaments that I'm probably coaching at, I coach my son's basketball team, but then also alcohol and adults upstairs at the same time, and compounding that problem, specifically on weekends. Finally, you know, when I look at this, I know it's a difficult issue. I think that what we all have to do is kind of take a step back. My thought on this is that if there are kids in school, and it's limited to high school students, there's a small window in the morning and in the afternoon in which there would be traffic and congestion. And I'm not saying that traffic isn't an issue, but originally the applicant came in, and I don't particularly think they did the best job at addressing some of those issues. That was my chief concern then. They have taken the time to address some of those issues, and I think Adam just said the city can probably go back and address some of the issues on the street, which is separate. But long-term, if there's a wedding venue in there, that problem on the weekends is going to be disastrous, and then you're adding alcohol on top of that. So those are some of the reasons why I'm at this point in favor of it. I think we'd have a much better, we're in a much better place if we put a school there instead of having a wedding venue in there where you're having children and alcohol in the same space. Thank you.
Other questions, comments, or motions? Alder Touche.
Is there a liquor license there now? You're putting school and alcohol together, is there one there now?
I don't think so, Mr. Sarah.
Well, I think the alcohol stuff can be addressed during the applicant process, so, and Alder Kemp, you know, it's a complication of those hours. I get that why you put them in there, I completely get it. I just don't think it's enforceable. Thank you.
Other questions or comments? Alder Humke. Oh, you can make a motion too. Yeah, that'd be in order.
I'm going to make a motion to approve the reconsideration of ordinance number 23-1018, approving a zoning map amendment for 401 Prairie Heights Drive from suburban commercial to public institutional with the conditions as listed. Is that acceptable?
I assume you're moving reconsideration and approval.
And approval, yes.
Okay, because we're already reconsidering it.
Yeah.
Motion by Alder Humke. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Alder Kemp. Motion before the body. Questions or comments on the motion? Alder Hook.
Sorry, didn't jump in earlier. Yeah, I think I'll keep it brief, but so I guess I didn't have a change of heart. I don't want to have that term thrown out there just kind of loosely, but when you don't have enough information and a vote comes up, that's my no vote came in, because I didn't have enough information at that time, nor that I was like comfortable to, that we had enough enforceable things or that there was enough specifics. That's where my reconsideration vote is coming into play, because now that we have addressed I think the school day, the capacity, the actual, knowing it's a high school, not worried about it being an elementary school or a middle school, right? So all those conditions in there have made me a lot more comfortable with it. Also, the parking that has already been an issue, we're working on addressing. So we're trying to make it more safe when you're leaving leaving the driveways, right? So we're trying to back off, whether it's 20 or 30 feet, whatever we decide on, to make sure that people that live there are able to pull out safely. So I think these conditions in here certainly, I think, will help and also try to offset so that not everybody's going to be there at the same time. So we've got a good use during the day, and then there's a different use at night and on the weekends. So I think, knowing this information, that has helped me, be more comfortable. But at that point, a month ago or 2 months ago, it's a yes or no vote, and I didn't have information at that time. So thank you.
Alder Ricky.
Yeah, I just wanted to reiterate that the Public Safety and Welfare Committee did look into and suggest painting the curb areas at the exits of driveways and such to improve sight lines. And I'm happy to hear that that's being looked into this Friday.
Other questions or comments on the motion? Alder Kemmett, and then myself.
Okay, so this is probably an Adam question. If we're addressing the street parking and the exits for the folks across the street, what about the main road that would lead into this property? So it's county highway. Are we allowed to change the speed limit there that comes off the bridge, which is a turn? So at 2 times a day when there are potentially backups, are we looking at dangers? Someone actually mentioned earlier, someone passed away on that bridge this winter. Is that something that we as a city can address, or is that something we're going to be dealing with the impact of later?
Mr. Sir.
Yeah, it's a good question that hasn't really come up as part of that Western Landscape annexation. So as part of that annexation, so right now it is a county highway, and as part of that, the county is the one who controls the speed limit on that roadway. And in order to change the speed, we have to do I think it's called a speed study, if I'm not mistaken. With the annexation of the Western Landscape property across the street, that will give us greater ability to control the speed limit out there. So that gives us discretion to make that change. In essence, we would have the ability to kind of change from where it kind of transitions down today from 45 to 35. We could look at that stretch going back to approximately kind of where the Ice Age Trail property is. That's something as staff I think we want to revisit here in the near future. We've been asking the county now for years if they would consider reducing that speed limit, and they've required a study every time we've asked. So we do see that as an opportunity with that annexation to make kind of that speed change, at least make that match out there. So that will give us greater control and greater ability out there. The second part of it as well, and it's on the next item on the agenda with this annexation agreement, but Western Landscape is putting in some bypass lanes and a small turn lane to come in as well. So they are making some public improvements in front of their property as well to kind of handle the potential turning movements from the vehicles out there too. So we've got kind of 2 things that will be occurring out there. Do you have anything to add, Carla?
I just wanted to clarify that a speed study was done, but it just didn't show, just the methodology that the county uses, it didn't show any way to reduce the speed. They have just a certain way that they do their study, but I think there's greater discretion for us to change that once that land is annexed in, is my understanding.
Calling on myself. A question for Mr. Kleinmeyer, and I'm pretty sure I know the answer, but do you believe the conditions are legally enforceable that have come with the motion? Yes. Okay.
Yes.
No, it's good enough for me. I think, I guess I just want to make two comments. One, my opinion really hasn't changed. I remain really concerned about the traffic on there, and I concerns about peak traffic times off of County Highway M. But I did want to say, I think, you know, if the motion does pass, I do think it's all these things are enforceable. The city has had no problems in the past enforcing things against people who try to, I don't know, weasel out of the agreements. I really don't think it's going to be an issue with this applicant. I believe that they've pledged to do all these things in good faith, and it's not going to be a problem. But if anyone doubts it, I believe we can absolutely enforce all these conditions, and we can absolutely enforce other parts of our agreements as well, not related to this. But I just wanted to make that clear. Any other questions or comments on the motion? Seeing no further discussion, we're going to do this one. We'll do this one by roll call vote. All those, Clerk Lake will read the roll, but we are doing the reconsideration and approval of ordinance number 23-1018, approving a zoning map amendment for 411 Prairie Heights Drive from suburban commercial to public institutional with the conditions specified in the packet. If Clerk Lake would read the roll.
Alderperson Cronin?
Aye.
Alderperson Helmke?
Aye.
Alderperson Hoagst?
Aye.
Alderperson Kemp?
Aye.
Alderperson Kimmett?
No.
Alderperson Posey?
Aye.
Alderperson Reiki?
Aye.
Alderperson Touche?
Nope.
Motion carries 6-2.
Thank you. Motion passes. We'll move on to 11B, which is a discussion and possible action regarding the annexation agreement with Western Investment Properties located at 6878 and 6880 County Highway M. Mr. Sayre.
Thank you. The proposed annexation agreement is with Western Investment Properties for the annexation of approximately 5.54 acres of land located at 6878 and 6880 County Highway M. The agreement includes language discussing anticipated infrastructure and utility improvements. Both city staff and the developer are comfortable with the terms of the agreement, and staff recommends approval of the annexation agreement subject to final review by the city administrator and city attorney.
Thank you for that explanation. Questions, comments, or motions? Alder Kimmett.
So Adam, can you just dive in a little deeper to what you just said about they're adding turn lanes? Like, what is that looking like?
Sure. So there's a technical term to it, which doesn't matter. But as part of this, they'll be extending water into the property and also sewer. So those are part of the public improvements. And then also there would be a turn lane as you head southbound on County Highway M. Little help, Carla, if I mess up. And as you head southbound on County Highway M, there'd be a small left turn lane into the property. And as you head northbound into the property, there'd be a small kind of right turn lane as well, more of kind of a peel off to get in, and also a widening of that driveway opening as well to make a right turn out as well.
This obviously is not pertinent to this, but if that work is already going to occur, is there any way to add a turn lane southbound to help with the school?
So the developer is doing this work, and it's being dictated by the county because it's a county highway. So the county actually has jurisdiction on this roadway. So the county is going to be the lead on the roadway improvements, and the city will be handling the public infrastructure of the water and sewer because those are our assets. But the county is the one who ultimately dictates the improvements on the roadway.
Okay. Just comment then, I think this is a interesting use of this property and won't detract from the natural landscape that's already there, so I'm generally feeling positive about it, but don't like that it also congests it even more.
Other questions, comments, or motions? Alder Posey.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the annexation agreement with Western Investment Properties located at 6878 and 6880 County Highway M with the condition on approval of the annexation agreement subject to final review by the city administrator and city attorney.
Motion by Alder Posey. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Alder Hoagst. Motion before the body. Questions or comments on the motion? Seeing no further discussion, all those in favor of approving the annexation agreement with Western Investment Properties located at 6878 and 6880 County Highway M, contingent upon final review by the city administrator and city attorney, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. And that motion passes. Next, we'll move on to 11C, which is a discussion and possible action regarding a memorandum of understanding that is an MOU between the city and the Verona Professional Police Association and the Wisconsin Professional Police Association /Lear. Mr. Sayre.
Thank you. The proposed MOU amends the existing vacation language for employees in the police union. We've had some inconsistencies over the years, and emphasis on years going back, of how vacation has been administered, which has resulted in 4 officers receiving less vacation time than others. The proposed MOU will credit the 4 officers with vacation and will also ensure the vacation schedule is corrected moving forward. For better or for worse, this is not a unique problem to us. I know community in Dane County is also dealing with a similar issue as well. These contracts, the language in these contracts for vacations are challenging to administer. So what we're doing is trying to address kind of our inconsistencies, we'll say, and then also be very abundantly clear to all parties moving forward how this is being administered. So staff recommends approval of the MOU. The union has reviewed it as well, and they recommend in favor of it.
Thank you for that explanation. Questions, comments, or motions on this item? Alder Cronin.
I would like to make a motion to approve the memorandum of understanding between the city and the Verona Professional Police Association and the Wisconsin Professional Police Association /Lear.
Motion by Alder Cronin. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Alder Kemp. Motion before the body. Questions or comments on the motion? Seeing no further discussion, all those in favor of approving the memorandum of understanding between the city and the Verona Professional Police Association and the Wisconsin Professional Police Association /Lear, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. That motion passes. We'll move on to 11D, which is a discussion and possible action regarding the request from Forward Development Group related to the Public Improvements Development Agreement and the TIF agreement for the Sugar Creek Commons project in Tax Incremental District Number 9.
I think Dan O'Callaghan, representing the developer, would like to give a very brief presentation.
Yes, I will keep it brief. Good evening. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. My name is Dan O'Callaghan. I'm a land use attorney here in Dane County. I'm appearing tonight on behalf of Forward Development Group, the developer of Sugar Creek Commons. There are 2 parts to the request before you tonight. I just want to start by saying that we appreciate the relationship we have with the city. This project could not have happened without your support, and we're looking forward to that continued support as we move on with new phases of the project. So as most of you will recall, the project received its final approvals and broke ground during the height of the COVID-19 pandemic. Project certainly faced a number of challenges early on, but the first phase is now complete, and we hope that you and your constituents view that as a welcome addition to the Verona Avenue corridor, the West Verona Avenue corridor. But it's those earlier problems that I mentioned that are the reason that we're here before you tonight. For a variety of reasons, FDG did struggle to meet the original completion deadline set by the council for the public improvements. So in mid-2021, we came to you with a request for an extension. The council considered that request, but withheld making a final decision until the project was completed so that you could evaluate the full impact of the project. So now that the work has been done, we're bringing this item back to the council for a decision on that extension. So that's the first half of the request that's before you tonight. Now the second piece is, it has to do with the hotel that was planned as part of this development. At this time, we're asking the council amend the development agreement to remove that vacant parcel of land that's at the west end of the Sugar Creek Commons site from the scope of the development agreement. That was the parcel that was intended for the hotel development. If that amendment is approved by the council tonight, that would mean that Forward Development Group would forego any portion of the tax increment generated from that parcel, and instead, 100% of the revenue, the incremental tax revenue generated from that, from the development activity on that site, would go directly to the TID9 account. And we're proposing that change because market conditions have caused the original plans for the hotel and convention center that were part of that project to no longer be feasible, quite frankly, under current conditions. So because a hotel is no longer a viable option, FDG is proposing that the entire $3.2 million TIF that the city invested in the public infrastructure for the Sugar Creek Commons development would be repaid solely from the mixed-use project that was just completed. So while we're disappointed, the original vision for the hotel is no longer realistic, we do remain very optimistic that the vacant portion that was slated for the hotel is going to see redevelopment activity very soon. And that would come to the council, come to the city for review through the normal land use review procedures, hopefully in the near future. So in the meantime, we're asking the council to approve that amendment, removing that site from the scope of the development agreement to clear the way for a new project to come forward. And I do want to underscore that the current projections show that the tax increment generated from that mixed-use project that was just completed will be sufficient to repay the entire amount of that TIF investment within the original 10-year period that was anticipated. There are some schedules that were included in the materials we submitted. You can find that increment schedule on page 93 of your PDF packet. And as I said a moment ago, removing the hotel site from the scope of the TIF agreement will allow 100% of the increment from any development that occurs on that property to flow directly to TID number 9, which the city can then use to fund other priorities or to close that district early. So that's it in a nutshell. That's a brief overview of the request that's before you. Those two main pieces to it, the extension on the public improvements and the remediation that was completed, and then the amendment to remove the hotel site from the scope of the agreement. There's more detailed information in the letter, 4 or 5 pages of additional supporting information for your review, but I'll leave it there. This is a really critical request for the future of the project and the remaining components there. We do, again, appreciate all that the city has done. We know it's been a long road, but we believe that we're starting to see dividends from all of that work, all the patience and the collaboration from the city starting to pay off. That Sugar Creek Commons project, if you'll recall, for those that have been around for a while, was the catalytic project that was envisioned in that TID number 9 plan. And we're very excited to see that really coming to reality. Happy to answer any other questions, but again, there's more detailed information in your packets.
Thank you. Alder Kemp.
Yes, thank you for coming. Just I think one question, and depending on how you answer it, it may bring another one to mind. But if we do this, what does Forward Development Group envision as a potential future project on that site?
A residential development primarily. The mixed-use project that's been developed as the first phase has been very successful. There's clearly a demand for that in this market. So there'd be a residential component to it, possibly another mixed-use component. I don't think the plans have been finalized. Perhaps a little hesitancy on overcommitting to commercial development. We know there's still quite a bit of vacancy to be absorbed. We're fortunate to have some leasing activity occurring with the current mixed-use phase. So some cautious optimism but a reluctance to overcommit to commercial. So I think what you'll see is primarily a residential project, which again is another reason for the request. Certainly the city wouldn't entertain any tax increment financing for a market rate residential project. So this would allow for a new project to come forward at a future date.
Okay. And just to follow up, I'm not sure, but any of these residential projects, would that, you may not be this far yet, and so I might be getting ahead, but would this be more apartments, or would there be a blend of different types of housing stock?
That hasn't been fully determined yet, but that is something that's being evaluated. Different housing types, different products. So that can certainly be part of the conversation as that plan moves forward.
All right, thank you.
Alder Posey, and then Alder Kemet.
Hi. So I specifically want to ask about the reasons for dropping the hotel event center, specifically for this community. And you said there are a number of factors. What specifically do you have data on those factors?
Financially, not a feasible project at this point. Construction costs, 25-30% higher than when the project was approved in 2020. The rising interest rates, the increasing costs to operate a hotel and event center. Those are some of the key reasons why the project's not viable. And nobody more than Forward Development Group would like to move forward with that hotel and event center. They've committed significant resources already. They've invested more than $300,000 in the architectural, engineering, surveying, franchise deposits with hotel groups. They've been planning for it for 6 years. So trust me, they would like to have that be a reality, but financially it's not feasible at this point.
Okay, because I sat here with you guys talking about how I specifically remember Craig's Cakes is going to walk over with a cake to the event center, and that being on the front end of all this. And we have empty commercial space. We will now continue to have an empty lot. We will now, and I don't see the difference between what you've built and now and are continuing to build, because we still have ongoing parts of this project, and this hotel. And also knowing we're building a second ice rink. We're seeing other things coming to our community, the growth of events over at the high school, which would be right nearby. So there is growth in our community that you said you know very well. And so I guess for me, I'm wanting to hear specific about our community that wouldn't allow this to go forward. So that's going to be part of my decision. I would say you're correct, empty space. Every time I drive by and see that sitting empty, I would hope that there's some push to try and get those filled sooner than later.
Alder Kemet.
So that kind of dovetails perfectly into my question, which is what is the actual level of leased space that's in the current completed building?
In the residential portion.
Either.
In the residential portion, I believe the occupancy, the latest reports that I saw were over 80%, and I think that was as of February. And in the commercial, 26,000 square feet of available commercial on the first floor, more than half of that is committed.
Okay. And when you say committed, do you mean a letter of intent or like a signed lease?
Signed leases. I don't know if the build-out is currently underway, but that is slated to be occupied this year.
Okay. Is that something you guys are finishing yourselves, or are you gray boxing it?
No, that'll be, the tenant improvements will be fully completed, and it will be occupied.
I have a question. Can you say who the tenants are?
2 of the signed leases are for Development Group itself. Will be putting its offices there, and JSD Professional Services, also taking another large suite in the first floor.
Thank you. Other questions? Well, as long as you're up. Question? Yeah. Okay, Alder Kemet.
Wouldn't the cost or the increased costs of building a hotel and convention center also apply for building more apartments and residential spaces?
Yes. Yes,
So,
absolutely.
Okay, so that's why I'm confused why that project is not viable when Alder Posey just said, like, we're building a second sheet of ice. We're bringing in opportunities for a project just like this. And so if the cost over the past couple of years has increased to do something like this, I don't understand why now we're pulling that project in order to build more residential spaces and potentially mixed-use spaces when we don't have, I mean, you just mentioned two businesses that are going to be leasing space there that none of us will ever go into. I mean, that's just the reality. It's not, these aren't restaurants or anything of that nature. I know that there was an applicant that came here at one point, but I know they're not going to be in there now. So I do have some concerns about what we're doing, and I'll just be frank. I was stopped at Miller's grocery store on Sunday by a woman who I've known basically my entire life, complaining about exactly what we're talking about right now, additional apartments. So I have some real concerns about that, given what we've seen from that property, what's going to go in there now, what's the viability of getting actual commercial and retail that people in the city are going to use and enjoy and will bring additional jobs. So again, though, I appreciate your time for coming.
Other questions? Are we into comments now? Okay, Alder Kemet.
So looking at the amortization schedule, is that based on full occupancy or just like what you already have now?
That's based on estimated assessment for the project. I believe it's estimated at approximately $22 million, which generates about $400,000 of increment.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
I guess we're into the general comments, and I'm going to call on myself. First up, in regards to the apartment versus the hotel, I completely understand that hotel and convention center is more exciting to people, and I also understand the feeling that if you were promised something, and then now it seems like maybe that promise didn't really count, and I understand how that's frustrating. That being said, I think, from talking to people in the hotel industry around the city, weekends are great for hotels in Verona, and the Monday through Friday is where the problems are. And so I guess I do kind of understand that, where it's very contingent. My understanding is it's on Epic, and so if Epic brings a lot of people for training, the hotels will be full Monday through Friday. If you can't count on Epic bringing in people for training Monday through Friday, and I don't know if we can, the hotels will not be full, and the hotels will have issues being viable. Speaking of Epic, they did have an announcement where they were adding 1,700 new positions, which is wild. But it also means we will need housing. And to me, it's like when you look at where we're going to put apartments, there's already apartments there. The street can handle it. And there's also currently existing businesses there, like the Thai place across the street and other places like that. And so I think if there was residential there, it would fill a need in our community, and it would be, it would support businesses. So I think that's good. My issue is on the TIF, because the TIF agreement was not met. It just wasn't met. So the idea that we're going to, especially after I just said that the city has ways of holding people to account, that we're going to have someone come before us, not meet an agreement, and then we're going to hand them $3.2 million or whatever, that's insane. That's completely ridiculous, and I would never agree to anything like that. I do think the cleanup, the environmental cleanup, I think that's 100% still worth paying for, the $700,000 or whatever it is. I don't have the number in front of me. That's worth paying for. I don't think anything else is. So like I said, I'm totally flexible on the apartment versus hotel. The idea of giving someone money after they didn't meet their agreements and after they have not met other sort of promises they made to people, I just think absolutely no way. I'm a true believer on the environment. cleanup's worth it, it's good for people. We clean up around site, that's wonderful. So like, you know, show us your costs, show us the proof from the DNR, and we can talk about that. But like, anything else, no way. I'm sorry, the buildings look great, I'm glad they're full of people, but no. That's my comment, though. Any other questions or comments from the council? Or does anyone feel the need to go into closed session to talk about negotiations? Mr. Sayre?
I guess in the closed session, yes, staff would like a closed session with the council, so I feel
All
that
right.
need. Just regarding good more procedure and process here, just so you know, we have four closed session items on the agenda. It's up to you kind of how you want to take these as well. So I guess ponder that. I've just got a few more kind of just updates on this item too, just of, you know, we did have, obviously the agreements were included in your packets, and those agreements included a completion date of this by July 31st of 2021, and that did include that hotel and conference center. Dan was back here previously, back in August of 2021. At that time, they're requesting a 60-day extension of kind of this TIF agreement for the project and the public-related improvements. We took no action in August, but we did state after that meeting, I think Mr. Clymer, or you possibly said it, Mayor Diaz, that it was important that those public improvements be completed, especially on West Rowan Avenue, before the start of the school year. And just to be clear, FDG did not complete those public improvements prior to the 2021-2022 school year. So just to make the council aware of kind of those facts as well. And obviously, as Dan said, they're requesting to remove the hotel conference center from the project as well too. So I'm not sure, Mr. Clymer, you have anything to add?
No, I can certainly answer questions, but primarily to speak in closed session.
Okay, sorry, go ahead.
And I was just going to say, you had touched on a procedural issue, so we have 4 different closed session items here. I don't know, I mean, my gut tells me on the last 2, you're probably not going to have any discussion in open session. If that's accurate, I guess my question is there any intention to have any discussion in open session on sub E? And so if we're going to talk about sub E in open session before we would move into closed session, I suggest that we do that and then double back and do the different closed session motions.
Okay, so then we'll stay on 11D for a second. Any more comments for open session on 11D regarding FDG and their development? Okay, any comments for open session regarding the mediation and potential litigation with the town of Verona? Mr. Sayre.
Thank you. I'll just read the summary here. On February 22nd, the city received notice from the town of Verona requesting mediation pursuant to terms of the city's boundary agreement. Specifically, the town contends the city's annexation of Ordinance 23-1020, that was the Cascade Development on County Highway M and County Highway PD, violated the boundary agreement as the annexation did not include the full width of the adjacent County Highway PD right-of-way. In the packet, we did include an email that I sent to the town planner administrator, Sarah Gaskell, outlining questions related to this annexation. To date, the city has not received answers to these questions. This is something that we would still like to receive responses to. We think it's important, as it'll help provide context into the town's concerns. Staff is requesting a closed session with the common council to discuss the town's request for mediation and also strategies related to potential litigation related to this.
In light of that information, any comments for open session regarding this item? Okay, then I think my interpretation of Mr. Kleinmeier's comment is then 4 separate motions to go into closed session?
Yeah, definitely separate motions on DE, and then theoretically, I think if you read F and G together, if you wanted to, since it's the same reason for going into closed session, you could do one motion on F and G if that was your choice.
Okay. Okay, well, 11D, a motion to go into closed session would be in order, if someone wants to make it. Alder Kemp?
I'm sorry. Yes. I'd like to make a motion to go into closed session regarding a request from Ford Development Group related to the Public Improvements Agreement and the TIF Agreement for Sugar Creek Commons Project in Tax Increment District Number 9. The Common Council may convene in a closed session as authorized by Wisconsin Statute 19.85 sub 1 sub E for the purpose of deliberating or negotiating the investing of public funds or conducting other specified public business whenever competitive or bargaining reasons require closed session. The Common Council may reconvene in open session and take action on the closed session item.
Motion by Alder Kemp, is there a second? Seconded by Alder Touche. Clerk Liquid, read the roll.
Alderperson Cronin.
Aye.
Alderperson Helmke.
Aye.
Alderperson Hoax.
Aye.
Alderperson Kemp.
Aye.
Alderperson Kimmett.
Aye.
Alderperson Posey.
Aye.
Alderperson Reekie.
Aye.
Alderperson Touche.
All right. I would entertain a motion to go into closed session regarding 11E, if someone would like to make it. Alder Posey.
I'd like to make a motion to move into closed session for discussion and possible action regarding mediation and potential litigation with the town of Verona. The Common Council may convene in closed session as authorized by Wisconsin Statute 19.85, Parent 1, Parent G, for the purpose of conferring with legal counsel for the city who is rendering oral advice concerning strategy to be adopted by the city with respect to litigation in which it is or is likely to become involved. The Common Council may reconvene in open session to discuss and take action on the subject matter discussed in the closed session.
Motion by Alder Posey. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Alder Hoax. If Clerk would read the roll.
Alderperson Cronin.
Aye.
Alderperson Helmke.
Aye.
Alderperson Hoax.
Aye.
Alderperson Kemp.
Aye.
Alderperson Kimmett.
Aye.
Alderperson Posey.
Aye.
Alderperson Reekie.
Aye.
Alderperson Touche.
All right. Moving on to 11F and G, I would entertain a motion to go into closed session on both these items. Alder Cronin.
I would like to make a motion to go into closed session for discussion and possible action regarding city administrator employment agreement and the amended transition agreement with Adam Sayre. The Common Council may convene in closed session for discussion and possible action regarding a city administrator employment agreement as authorized by Section 19.85, Paren 1, Paren C of the Wisconsin statutes to consider employment, promotion, compensation, or performance evaluation data of any public employee subject to the jurisdiction or authority of the City of Verona. The Common Council may reconvene in open session to discuss and take action on the subject matter discussed in the closed session.
Motion by Alder Cronin. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Alder Kimmett.
Just to be certain, that also and then includes going into closed session regarding discussion and possible action regarding an amended transition agreement with Adam Sayre.
And that was understanding the second as well?
Yes.
All right. Clerk would read the roll.
Alderperson Cronin.
Aye.
Alderperson Helmke.
Aye.
Alderperson Hoax.
Aye.
Alderperson Kemp.
Aye.
Alderperson Kimmett. Alderperson Posey.
Aye.
Alderperson Reekie.
Aye.
And Alderperson Touche.
All right, and we will move into closed session as soon as the doors are closed. All right, it is 9:38, and we are back in open session. In regards to all the items, under 11D, we had discussion, and we will have more information going forward, but no final decisions were made. Under 11E, that's the same issue. So that brings us to 11F, which is a discussion and possible action regarding the city administrator employment agreement. Alder Posey.
Thank you. I'd like to make a motion to approve the city administrator employment agreement between the city of Verona and Jamie Aluk.
Motion by Alder Posey. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Alder Kemp. Motion before the body. Any questions or comments on the motion? I'll just say one thing real quick. I think I sat in on the interview processes, and I think Jamie is going to be a very good hire for the city. I think he also is going to enjoy being the administrator here. So I think it's good for both parties, and I am looking forward to him getting started. Any other questions or comments on the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor of approving the employment agreement, or the city administrator employment agreement, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. And that motion passes. Next, we'll move on to 11G, which is a discussion and possible action regarding the amended transition agreement with Adam Sayer. Questions, comments, or motions? Alder Kemp.
I'll just make a motion recommending approval of the amended transition agreement with current city administrator Adam Sayer.
Motion by Alder Kemp, seconded by Alder Touche. Motion before the body. Questions or comments on the motion? I'll just say real quick, Mr. Sayer's transition agreement is being extended for 2 months, basically because Jamie, the new city administrator, needed a few months before he started, and so I think we all really appreciate Mr. Sayer stepping up and helping cover for those next 2 months. And I do want to just say I think he's done a great job as the city administrator. Other questions or comments on the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor of approving the amended transition agreement with Adam Sayer, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. And that motion passes. Next, we have item 13, which is adjournment. Motion by Alder Touche. Is there a second? Seconded by Alder Humke. All those in favor of adjournment, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. And we adjourned at 9:40 p.m. Thank you, everyone.